Welcome to Murder Mile UK True Crime. This isn't a video, it's an audio experience. The only images you'll need for this episode are these. So close your eyes, open your mind, and savour the sounds of Murder Mile. How do you cure yourself of a cancer which isn't inside of you? Find out on Murder Mile. Today I'm standing on Darell Road in Kew, near Twickenham. 2 stops south of the meticulous disposal of Anik Yannick's wife. 2 stops southeast of the cold-blooded killing of taxi driver George Heath. 3 stops east of the sadistic rape and murder of 2 young girls at Teddington Lock. And 1 stop north of the severed body parts strewn across Richmond Park. Coming soon to Murder Mile. At 4 Darell Road sits a 2-storey brown brick Victorian terraced house. It's desirable being so close to Kew Gardens, but undesirable being so close to the busy Lower Richmond Road. It has an unusable, postage stamp-sized front garden which is reserved for the bins. And it's typical of London, a place so devoid of greenery. It is a pencil-thin rear garden covered in large paving slabs, except for a small, single flower bed. It's the kind of house you could imagine a harassed mum screaming at her brat for smearing jam on her white walls, a teen slamming doors like she was King Kong reborn, and a dad snoring so loud the neighbours accuse him of all-night drilling. But you can't imagine anything really bad happening here. But every street has a murder house, and this is theirs. Back in 2019, the ground floor flat was home to 34-year-old Laureline Garcia-Bertaux, a busy singleton working in the media who had big plans to become a creative success and was striving to make it happen. She had a good job, a busy social life, she was liked and she was popular. By the March, she was about to begin what she believed, or maybe hoped, was a fresh start by moving into a new flat. Yet something was eating away at her. A sickness that pervaded her life, and a terminal disease which could never be cured. But this wasn't a virus which festered within her, as it was all around her, and had been for a decade. My name is Michael, I'm your tour guide, and this is Murder Mile. Episode 352, Living with Cancer. Sunday the 3rd of March 2019. The front room of Laureline's ground floor flat at 4 Darell Road in Kew was packed full of boxes, half loaded, as she still had items to bubble wrap, secure with parcel tape, and neatly store ready for the removals van. The flat looked bare, yet oddly chaotic, as bin bags full of rubbish sat by the door, and with the dishes and the cutlery in a box-marked kitchen, there was the obligatory mug of tea and takeaway boxes. Except for the persistent bark and whimper of Laureline's beloved dogs, a Rottweiler and a Husky, the flat was silent. All that was heard was the usual click and bleep of her phone. As being a millennial, Laureline was never off it. It was an exciting time, and being a fresh start, her friends and family all received texts. To her friend Ian Richards, one text read, "Bought a few dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, and I can't stop. Anna met an interesting guy. Maybe we'll go and have a coffee with him later on." As with £17,000 worth of debts paid off, moving to her new flat, and said to be on better terms with her ex-boyfriend, who some say she was still besotted by, she seemed to be giddy with excitement. To her best friend Beth Penman, one text read, "So, I met someone quite interesting. He's a vet and we're going to go for coffee. I don't know why I said yes, but wish me luck. He's fit, shy and confident at the same time." And although Laureline was supposed to be moving house that day, it seemed odd that all of this was being put on hold for a shopping trip she rarely did, and a blind date out of nowhere. To her loved ones, It didn't seem like the Laureline that they knew. And it wasn't, as she was already dead. Laureline Garcia-Bertaux, nicknamed Lolo, was born on the 25th of November 1984 in Aix-en-Provence, a university city in southern France, 30 kilometers north of Marseille. As a hub of education and culture, being the birthplace of painter Paul Cézanne and bustling with 17th century mansions, it was an idyllic place to be raised. And having lived for a while in Corsica, a Mediterranean island north of Sardinia, this gave her a thirst for travel, adventure and self-discovery, with her family giving her the freedom that she needed. The name Laureline means to be crowned with laurels. Deriving from the Latin laurus, it symbolizes victory, honor and distinction. That summed her up. As a tall and confident woman, she strode when others shuffled. She was strong-willed but never rude, a force of nature but always compassionate, with her many friends praising her as talented, loyal, caring and vivacious, as well as very talkative and friendly. As a natural performer, from the age of 4, Laureline loved to dance. Any kind, from street to ballet, modern jazz to belly dancing. She got the acting bug early on and appeared in many school plays. She performed in a cover band called The Tams and was a talented singer-songwriter in her own right. But seeing that her talents lay behind the camera, she began to experiment with art and music videos. Laureline studied at the Sorbonne University in Paris, and seeking to expand her skills further, in 2008 she studied at St Martin's School of Art and Design in central London. She was ambitious and driven. For 5 years she worked as a production assistant at the Discovery Channel. In her spare time, she cut her teeth as a line producer and co-producer on short films, such as Being Earnest in 2012, K&P in 2013, Then and Now starring Julian Glover in 2015, Jerry in 2018 with Dame Joan Collins, and Spanish Pigeon with Robert Glenster and Don Warrington in 2020. And as a step further up the career ladder, she worked on the feature film Tower Block starring Sheridan Smith and Bone in the Throat featuring John Hannah, as this was her passion. She was also a keen fashion blogger. She loved music and catalogued every aspect of her life on social media. But knowing that passion rarely pays the bills, especially in the British film industry, she worked as an executive assistant at the PR firm Golin. Laureline's life was busy. Yet the one thing she loved most was taking her beloved dogs for a walk, or curling up with her babies, as she called them, on the sofa, covered in fur and dribble, like a good dog mum. And yet a cancer was about to infect her life. Kirill Belorusov had an Estonian passport, but was born in Russia's second largest city, St. Petersburg, on the 4th of March 1987. His name Kirill derives from the Greek Kyrillos, meaning Lord and Master, which those who knew him felt that was how he saw himself. He was possessive, jealous and manipulative. He wasn't liked, and he believed that he was the master of everything he possessed, including women. As a pencil-thin rake of a man with an expressionless face, as if it had been moulded on by a machine. He was odd-looking. Even his own lawyer later described him as looking like a Bond villain. And with the personality of a walnut, it's hard to know what made Laureline fall in love with Kirill, but she did. Little is known about his early life. He was raised in Tallinn, Estonia's capital city, where his father was a policeman. Like all Russian men, he served a year in the military as part of his national draft. With a limited online presence, we know that he liked Western bands like Slipknot and brands like Burger King and PlayStation, and yet he never posted anything about his family to his 10 friends on Facebook. We know he worked in bars and nightclubs. He was a night owl who liked loud music and hated being communicative, so that suited him. But unable to accept that his life wasn't a rip-roaring success, he also claimed he was casino security for many high rollers, and fittingly given his looks, he claimed that he was a stuntman on the zombie apocalypse movie World War Z. But most of his facts were all a lie. He lied about everything, as his life was vapid and empty. He was friendless, often unemployed, and described as a cruel and heartless fraud. Kirill wasted his life surfing for porn, gaming, and gambling. Laureline was healthy and well before she met Kirill. And yet he was the real cancer in her life, in more ways than one. Having met in 2009, by 2013, they were living together in a ground floor flat at 208 Court Road in Mottingham, South London. The relationship was the epitome of toxic. As being a manipulator, he professed to love her, yet ridiculed her curvy figure. He could kiss her with the same lips that he would curse her. And across their 10 years together, the way he gaslit her was later described as psychological waterboarding. As this confident and strong-willed woman slowly became withdrawn, sullen, lost, and submissive. This wasn't love. It was control. He was an unemployed slob who leeched off Laureline. And even though as an assistant, she wasn't earning a lot of money, across the years, she loaned him £17,000, the equivalent of the average UK annual wage after tax, which he always promised to pay her back, but never did. While he was gambling, she became more frugal, and struggling to pay her bills. If she spent any money at all, it would always be on her dogs, and not herself. In 2017, they split up, but stayed in contact. He moved out. She began online dating on Tinder, Bumble, and the Inner Circle. And although she was free, the damage had been done. Some said she was still besotted by him, as like many abused partners, she was made to feel worthless, like she was nothing without him, and that he was the answer to her problems, when in truth, he was the cancer which was killing her. Mentally, she was dying, as already she'd been infected with his lies. At the trial, Martin Rutherford QC said, "That is the level, extent and breadth of his dishonesty. One cannot rely on anything that Kirill Belorusov says. He is someone who lies and lies, brazenly over and over again. He is someone who believes in his power to tell lies, and his power to be believed." With Judge Nicholas Hilliard QC stating, "He just tells them on a scale and magnitude I have never encountered before. He is a calculating and deceitful liar." As deep down, he knew that he was worthless. But his lies weren't just manipulative, they were also cruel. To avoid paying Laureline back the £17,000 he owed her, he told her, her friends, and her family that he had advanced pancreatic cancer. To make his lie believable, he fabricated the symptoms: intense stomach and back pain, nausea and severe fatigue. And already being skinny and pale, anemia and weight loss was hard to spot. The symptoms hard to fake, like jaundice and onset diabetes, he found excuses for. And like a cruel cherry on the cake, full of horrible lies, he shaved his head totally bald, as if he was going through chemo. He always looked sick, and mentally he was. But now he looks sicker. Police found no trace of him receiving cancer treatment in London or the UK, and being nowhere near a hospital when he told her that he was seeing his oncologist. He was actually seeing his other girlfriend. Neither women had met, and although they both lived in London, neither knew of the other. His other woman was fed the same lies about his cancer. She too was duped into giving him money, and as he lay on the sofa, moaning and groaning about his illness. Like Laureline, this girlfriend did everything for him, as this lord and master sat on his throne, being waited on hand and foot by his loyal servants. By November 2018, Laureline and Kirill's friendship had begun to sour. Whether she had begun to see the cracks in his lies, like his bald head being smooth but not patchy, and his eyebrows and armpits still hairy. With his unpaid loan of £17,000 causing her misery, she texted him, begging, "I don't think you realise how bad the situation is. I could barely pay my rent this month, and food for myself and the dogs." Months before, she'd moved into a ground floor flat at 4 Darell Road. It was within her budget, but only just. It had a thin back garden, which was vital for her beloved dogs. And although it had 2 bedrooms, this was for her friends and family when they came to visit, including her ex-boyfriend, Kirill. At the trial, although he deleted all of their messages and destroyed her phone so it would never be found, retrieved by the police's digital forensics team, every message was read out to the jury, which showed how desperate and anxious Laureline was, and how callous and controlling Kirill remained. By the start of February 2019, Laureline was in a financially precarious position. As unable to pay her rental bills, although the £17,000 loan he had promised to pay her back would have saved her, she was threatened with being evicted on Sunday the 3rd of March 2019, and this would be her last day in the flat. Kirill's greed and selfishness had driven her to homelessness, and once she was gone, he would lose her forever. So how does a serial liar solve an impossible problem? With another lie. Still sporting his bald head, a wince, and conveniently timed nausea, he told Laureline that he would sort it. In February he paid her back a tiny portion, but not all of the money he owed her, just as a token gesture. And he said he'd pulled out all of the stops to find her a lovely new flat in South London to move into. She believed him, as that is the mark of an abused partner. Being besotted beyond the realms of belief and unwilling to see the truth, as she'd been made to believe that she was a nothing without him. Whether she knew it or not, the cancer had infected her heart, and the only cure was to cut Kirill out. But was Laureline strong enough? That final weekend, Kirill claimed he came down to help Laureline move into her new and fictional flat. He came to her like a shining knight, and although it was all his fault, he wanted something in return. At the trial, Laureline's mother saw him smirk as his text to her dead daughter was read out. It read, "Will it be possible for some nudie photos of you to keep me motivated and happy until Friday? I want to see all of you. Please be kinky. Me want booby and you naked and pretty. I miss your soft, curvy self." On Friday the 1st of March 2019, he treated her to dinner at Jackson and Rye in Richmond, an American-style brasserie at 1 Heron Square on the banks of the River Thames. They held hands and drank Prosecco. Anyone watching them would have believed that she was once again in love with him and not prisoner to his lies. But as they got the R68 bus back to Darell Road, although they held hands, the CCTV clearly shows during this 8-minute journey that the couple were quiet, and Laureline was upset and tearful. Unlike the cancer, Kirill could fake a miraculous recovery. But his latest lie, created entirely by himself, had a large and impending problem. As once that deadline was crossed, the truth would be outed. Saturday the 2nd of March 2019 was the day when Laureline was supposed to be packing to move out. She had everything planned. She disassembled her bed, bubble-wrapped the telly, boxed up her possessions, everything from the cups to the cutlery, and needing a big bag of dog food and some other essentials, Laureline and Kirill went shopping at Pets at Home and Argos on nearby Richmond Road. But the lie was unravelling. For weeks, she'd asked him for photos of the flat and the address so she could redirect her post, but he kept coming up with excuses. With the packing half done, she may have realised it was a lie and challenged him. And with his cruel deception about to be unmasked, Laureline became a hurdle to Kirill's cruelty. With neither injured nor drugged, the dogs may have been in the garden when he grabbed a cable and strangled Laureline. Oliver Glasgow, QC for the prosecution, said, "The last minutes of her life must have been truly terrifying as he squeezed the very life out of her. She realized that the man who cared for her was a cheat and a killer. It was the kind of calculated and selfish callousness that only a man who would lie about his impending death could show, as Laureline was a problem that had to be removed, and the only way to do it was to silence her." In a killing described as calm and methodical, he kneeled on her with so much force that the pathologist said it was as if something heavy had fallen on her chest, taking her at least 4 minutes to die. But this wasn't a killing out of rage or hatred, but financial necessity. The judge described it as a murder with brutal and clinical precision, and so lacking in remorse was this man that he didn't cry a single tear. Instead, as a slowly cooling body lay at his feet, he ordered himself some takeaway. He prowled the internet on Pornhub and Paddy Power, and then he messaged his other woman, telling her, "You're the most beautiful and most precious lady in my life. I would kill for you, and I'd lie for you." Only his litany of cruel lies had only just begun. The front room of Laureline's ground floor flat at 4 Darell Road was packed full of boxes, half loaded as she still had items to bubble wrap. And as her dogs whimpered anxiously as her body lay cold and dead, sat on the sofa, scoffing his takeaway and slugging back beer, Kirill held her phone in his hand. To her friend Ian Richards, he wrote, pretending to be Laureline, "Bought a few dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, and I can't stop. And I met an interesting guy. Maybe we'll go and have coffee with him later on." To her best friend Beth Penman, he wrote, "So, I met someone quite interesting. He's a vet and we're going to go for a coffee. I don't know why I said yes, but wish me luck. He's fit, shy and confident at the same time." With the other messages sent to her family to make it seem like she was alive and well. That day, Sunday the 3rd of March, he calmly walked to home base as if he was planning to do a spot of DIY. He casually purchased some heavy-duty rubble sacks, a bag of soil, an axe, and several reels of duct tape. He paid for it using a card, with not a bead of sweat on his brow. He went to a convenience store on Market Road for more duct tape, as well as 8 cans of strong lager, and then headed back to do the unthinkable. First, he stripped her. It wasn't to hide her identity, as everyone would know who she was. So maybe it was to shame this body-conscious woman in death as he had done so in life. Like she was rubbish, he wrapped her in black bin bags, bound her wrists behind her back to ensure that this corpse did everything he demanded, even in death. And with a thin back garden paved with heavy slabs, he dug up a 6-foot by 3-foot flower bed with a spade and dragged her body into this painfully shallow grave. In his eyes, she was dead and buried. But to her friends and family, she was very much alive. To cover his tracks, but also give himself an alibi so no one would suspect him, he texted her friends and family so they would believe he'd been as good as his word. On her phone, as Laureline, he wrote, "I went to see the house. It's beautiful. And Kirill gave me another £7,000, so I'm going to go on a shopping spree. He transferred another £10,000 a week ago and left. Housewarming party coming real soon, so hot tub and boob lift." Which some of her friends believed and even praised him. But others saw through his lies, as only someone who truly knew Laureline would. She never spoke of boob jobs or liposuction. She never went on shopping sprees as she was financially broke. And as for the date with the fit vet, this seemed far-fetched, as that weekend she was meant to be moving. But one detail proved that all of these messages weren't written by Laureline. Her first language was French. She wrote in French to her family, yet Kirill, as a non-French speaker, had put all of the messages through Google Translate. And it's impossible to fabricate someone else's prose, especially in a foreign language. But Kirill didn't see that, as his arrogance knew no bounds, and stripping her family of any hope, he shut down her phone. On Monday the 4th of March, with Laureline having failed to turn up to work at the PR firm Golin, with Kirill professing to be out of his mind with worry when asked by her brother if he'd seen her, and with her flat locked up and her beloved dogs unusually subdued, with her disappearance being out of character, she was reported missing, and the police called at 4 Darell Road to do a welfare check. Looking through the letterbox, it was clear that she hadn't gone anywhere, as her purse and her keys were on the doorside table. Her dogs had soiled on the carpet, suggesting they hadn't been let out for hours or even days, and with her possessions only partially boxed up, she must be inside, but wasn't responding. Gaining entry via the back door, it was clear that this flat was empty and that Laureline was missing. But one detail stood out amongst the boxes and the parcel tape. With a spade wet with soil next to the flower bed, who would do gardening in a flat they were only renting on the day they were due to move out? A detective moved a few inches of topsoil and wrapped in plastic. They saw her feet. To build a timeline of her movements, text messages from Laureline's phone provider suggested that she'd met a man for a date, but she hadn't. She was supposedly moving house, only a removals van hadn't been booked. To resolve this, they needed to speak to her ex-boyfriend, Kirill, who by text was initially helpful. But on Wednesday the 6th of March, the same day her body was found, he fled to Estonia. And as predicted, he didn't come across as a man remorseful for his crimes. As heading out in his home city of Tallinn, he got drunk, he partied with his pals, and to his 10 friends on Facebook, he posted footage of himself playing Call of Duty Black Ops 4 with the hashtag Winner Winner Chicken Dinner. With the evidence stacked against him, a European arrest warrant was issued on the 12th of March, and with the help of Europol, Estonian police arrested him within 5 minutes. Extradited to England, his fingerprints and DNA matched those found on the bin bags and the duct tape. So even without a confession, which they knew he wouldn't give, Kirill was charged with her murder. Tried at the Old Bailey before Judge Nicholas Hilliard QC, as Kirill took to the stand to testify in his own defense, he doubled down on his own lies. When told, "There's no evidence you ever had cancer," he replied, "I do." When told, "You are not a stuntman," he replied, "I am." When asked if he had killed her, he replied, "I didn't. It was somebody else." As a liar can't help but lie. And so cruel was Kirill that when he finished his testimony, walking past Laureline's family, he winked at them and smiled. With his guilt proven, and it stated he was a monster who had swindled several other women out of cash. On the 30th of September, the jury of 7 women and 5 men took just 2 hours to deliberate. Still smirking, Kirill Belorusov was sentenced to life with a minimum of 24 years. Summing up, Judge Hilliard remarked, "I am satisfied you killed her in an effort to stop being exposed as an imposter and a fraud. Having seen the evidence, I'm sure you held yourself in high regard." After sentencing, her mother Frederique said, "There was not a moment during the day I don't think of my Laureline. I can't touch her. I can't kiss her anymore. I watch videos of her just to hear her voice, to hear her laugh, and to see how she moves. I would give anything to hear her happy moments, even sad moments, and to hear her say the words, "Mum, I love you." Laureline Garcia-Bertaux was kind, generous, loving, and Kirill Belorusov exploited this. In her life, he was the cancer. And like so many cancers which plague society, he took an innocent life to the grave.